Welcome. Our webinar today, my guest Lisa Piper is going to share the Climate Pros journey to cloud ERP. I'm Deborah Lilly, VP of Customer Success and an Oracle ACE Director at Inoapps. And at Inoapps, we're an Oracle-only partner that provides all Oracle services across technology and applications. Before I ask Lisa to introduce herself, I'm just going to play a little video that tells you a little bit about Climate Pros.
In the bustling aisles of a grocery store or the sterile halls of a pharmaceutical company, it's easy to take for granted the cool, crisp air that keeps everything fresh and safe. But behind the scenes, an intricate network of refrigeration systems is working tirelessly to maintain the temperature and humidity levels required to preserve everything from fresh produce to life-saving medicines. In America, we often overlook the importance of refrigeration in these industries and the critical roles that HVAC/R technicians play in keeping America healthy and well-fed. We take care of different types of refrigeration systems, such as supermarkets, warehouses, sports arenas. Our technicians, what they do, they service and maintain and install all different types of refrigeration equipment. Without our technicians, products wouldn't last as long as it could. For example, COVID, the vaccine, wouldn't be able to live very long without a refrigeration system. And our technicians, they maintain these systems on a regular basis. Matter of fact, refrigeration systems run 24 hours a day, and it cannot shut down. And because of that, our technicians are in demand.
So I found that really interesting. I love that we have many different customers, and I love that each customer is doing something slightly different. And it's how the Oracle system can assist them that really makes my job interesting. So, Lisa, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. And I mean, just like kind of tag on a little bit more about Climate Pros. I think the video did a wonderful job of summarizing it, but essentially we keep the food cold. I mean, also, schools, blood banks, some other things, but our major customers are large grocery chains and mid-tier, and we do about 50% modernization, which is basically like construction. If there's a new store or they are getting all new freezers or cool units, and then the other 50% is service. I am the director of accounting, so I've been here about 3 years. What's I guess like a little bit about my background. I come from larger companies, so came from a Fortune 500 company, but personally, my family had still does, a small elevator company. So what really appealed to me with Climate Pros and joining the team is our president started this company 15 years ago with 2 people and 2 Dominick stores and has grown it to, almost 2,000 employees. So I really like this story, and we are a large company, but with that small company feel. And that's really where we're at.
That is really interesting, and I must tell you someday my elevator story. But it's really interesting to understand the background of a company and how it's got there and what it's doing. So, can you tell us a little bit about finance in your organization and how that's grown?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the company grew so fast that the back office did not keep up. And I think that's where I saw a really good opportunity, because I came from a background, again, of Fortune 500, very process orientated, audit upon audit, and everything documented. And so when I came here, we did not have any of that. And we also were on a very small third, fourth tier-ish system that just lacked so many of the basic accounting things that anybody in an accounting department or any director or CFO would want. So I kind of came into a bit of a mess, but also a blank slate, if you want to look at it positively. where, you know, we got everything, how do I want to say, kind of our I's dotted, our T's crossed, everything cleaned up and documented. But quickly, you know, the CFO agreed we needed a new system. So that's kind of, you know, what led us to the next steps.
So I know that you had a homegrown system that did most of your processing for your business. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because that's still very key to what you're doing today.
Yes. So we do have, it's called Fieldgetics. We have an in-house system, and it still does the actual billing. It does tax feeds, and it's the biggest thing is for the technicians out on the calls, right? So checking in, checking out, sending in information for part ordering, just a variety of things. And it's also a really great tool for our customers. But so again, I guess to rephrase that we've absolutely kept, but it integrated in a very, I'll use these fancy accounting word, clunky way with our previous system before Oracle. And it would only feed once a day, and there was a ton of errors, and we literally had somebody on there hours a day managing that feed across. So
Yeah, but I always, again, you know, the interesting thing about an organization is what does that organization do? And that's the most important system in your organization is what makes you you. So you know, your Field JetX is about what Climate Pros does. And so that's key and you know and is may change over time, but it's the thing that keeps you going. So that's really important. So before you had Oracle, what were you doing for finance before Oracle?
we were on a small, like I said, third or fourth tier construction type software. Um, could do the very, very basics, but could not do things like recurring journal entries, could not do automatic reversing journal entries, very, very clunky feeds back and forth, could not take a negative credit memo from our Fieldgetics billing system. Just a lot of things it could not do. And to say it was not friendly in terms of Excel exporting would be a huge understatement. I think anybody who is on this call who works in Excel at any point during their day, you know, when you're getting data with it's just honestly just a mess. So, you know, getting on one of our big criteria was getting a system that actually was Excel friendly. So so there was just a lot of challenges. It was great when the company was a lot smaller, but with the rapid growth with the company, like we had outgrown it years before we actually took the plunge.
Yeah, and you know that's a very common story that we see with especially with companies that are growing. When you're starting, you can't, you know, you're not going to invest in a tier one organization software when there's half a dozen of you around the kitchen table.
Right.
Inoapps ourselves, that's how we started. We certainly didn't have Oracle systems on day one, even though that's our business. So that's totally understandable. So you needed a new system. You said that you needed that for a number of years, and you know you weren't happy. The CFO wasn't happy with the reporting. So what did you do to find a new system?
Well, I mean, the first thing obviously was the, you know, C-suite approval. And once we obtained that and, you know, also built the excitement in the team about going on like a real accounting system for lack of a better word, you know, really it was, you know, how do I say, weighing alternatives. And we had it, I was not the project lead. I was basically the subject matter expert. My teams are like AR, AP, accounting, tax feeds, that kind of thing. But we did have a project lead, and I was part of all of the alternatives. So in other words, the walkthroughs. So they determined a couple companies, i.e., you know, Oracle and one other that we were going to go with. And essentially we had a I guess we'll call it application walkthrough, or I don't even know I'll be honest with you, I don't remember the exact terminology, but we had to determine which was the best fit for our company. Obviously, price mattered, functionality mattered, and the ability who we could partner with mattered, because it was a pretty tight schedule once we got it approved.
And of course, the being able to work with your system that you had, your
Oh,
veg.
absolutely. With FieldJetX, yes, sorry. That absolutely goes without saying.
So you made the decision to go with Oracle. And when was that? What was the timings around that?
So yeah, I want to say the final things were signed in May of 2023. So, when I think it was more first quarter where approval happened, and some of the, let's call it the evaluation of the ERP systems. And also we did EPM, which is the planning modules too. So there was two. And then it was basically full tilt go starting May. And our go live was January 1st. So, I mean, 7 months stretching it
Yeah.
from sign to go live.
It's not surprising that you can't remember life before it, because it
Yeah.
has gone very, very, very quickly. So you had, yeah, I think you said something about, you said that the CEO was on board, but he'd made a commitment, hadn't he, that you would be live by the 1st of January.
Yes. Yes. And my manager, the CFO, absolutely. It was really never, I mean, I guess maybe in the back of our heads we're like, well, what if we don't go live? But the reality of it is we all knew we're just going to do what it takes.
Brilliant.
And also, me being the director, I don't want to be involved in an audit that is on two systems. I didn't even want to go there. And making sure we went live 1/1 made our last year's audit very clean. And then now we're going into this year. So when we're pulling reports, whatever we're doing, we're on one system. I've been on audits in years past where you've had an integration or a system change in the middle of the year, and it's we'll just say it's unpleasant. So
what you've said here is, like, from the time that the decision was made that you were going to replace it, there was like a year in which you had to replace it, because you were that 1st of January was so important to you for so many reasons. You went through that
exactly.
evaluation, right? And that evaluation was 3-4 months. You looked at two systems, you chose Oracle. How did you come across Inoapps?
That I wish I could answer for you. I believe I believe you were recommended. So it's just a really strong partner. I think our project lead was actually more involved in that than I was. But that's what I recall being told.
Yeah, so I mean, I know the answer is that Oracle came to us and they said, "Hey, this is an industry that you've got experience in, and we'd like to propose you." But
Perfect. Yeah.
you said before, a partner that you could work with. So that was
Yeah, we had
important.
no in-house expertise on this.
So one of the things that we brought to the table that I think resonated was that we understood that speed was of the essence, right? We understood that you needed an implementation that would give you what you needed by that date. And that date was sacrosanct, and being able to work with your existing system was equally important. And we have a methodology that we call Evolve, which is about that. Now, there is the ability to put Oracle in quickly. And I know when I'm talking to Oracle salespeople, they say, "Oh, can't you do it quicker?" And we say, "Well, we can, but customers can't consume it as quickly as we could put it in." Right? There's an awful lot of thought that have to go into it. Data has to be got ready. People have to be got ready. There's all of the change management around it. you can't necessarily do it fast. Now, I have seen implementations that happen fast, but the term that I personally use is that the lights have been switched on. So the lights have been switched on, but there's no value to it, it's just a different system.
Right.
What we believe in Evolve is that we're going to get you live as soon as possible in your time scale, which in your case was that 7 months. But we're not going to stop there. We're going to have the what do you need to go live? But for a customer who is committed to getting more and more out of the system. So what happened was we said, okay, in phase 1, we're going to go live with the US. And then you had other plans to do afterwards, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So that methodology is about fast time to value. And that was our proposal that we believed that we could do for you quickly, and that understood that coexistence that you needed with your other system. Because to be honest, no system stands alone in isolation.
Right.
But we don't just come in and switch it on. Obviously, there are things that we needed from you. So, your chart of accounts. I'm sure that was a change.
Yes, we revamped our entire chart of accounts. So we went from I guess I won't bore everyone with the details, but like we did a completely different hierarchy, a completely different numbering sequence. And then because Oracle has so many other fields available, market segments, intercompany, just a lot of things our prior system did not have. I mean, just the design of the chart of accounts was kind of a big feat on our side. So
Yeah, there's always a little bit of the what don't you know when you're doing that, and we've got all of this information. What can we collect? What data can we collect? And what would we use that data for afterwards? So how to segment that. And obviously, the other part of that is making sure that we get that integration with your system correct, so that we can meet that deadline. And because there's no point in having a new finance system if all the other systems aren't working, because that's where that main data is coming from. So
absolutely.
we got to May, the contract was signed, and the implementation started in June, which is 5 months from the beginning, pretty quick. Actually, I'm really impressed in that, because there are times when contracts take longer than implementations. So it was nice for us to go through that. And then we had the 7 months around about for the implementation. Evolve works on the basis that we know what you need, but and that we're validating rather than designing from the bottom up, right? So we make assumptions based on our knowledge, and you validate them. But obviously, there are things that still have to be designed. We've talked about the chart of accounts. But we have those validation workshops, and the main basis is that you're adopting the modern best practice for Oracle. And that's a great starting point, but there will always be deviations for organizations. So, tell us about that process, the walkthroughs, etc.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that actually went really, really well for us. I think the one thing I want to point out is like our walkthroughs and our partner with Inoapps had what I personally liked, a really, really strong accounting background. So I could talk debits and credits with this person, and it really enabled us for everything to go smoother. So we would have the workshops, and we would have AR, we would have AP, we would have GL, so, and it was a lot, I mean, everybody's got their day job. Again, so company wise, we're building the excitement of getting a new system and having all this functionality, but we would have the workshops, and it was very, very structured, which I liked. It would come in and say, and I'm going to take a step back. Inoapps had a really good idea from just even the prelim of kind of what we do and what we needed. So the workshops were pretty designed for what we needed to talk about. We weren't talking about a bunch of stuff we didn't need to talk about. And then if an option was presented to us and we're like, okay, that's great, but that won't work for us. And I mean, I can share an example on that. Um, it was very easy to pivot. So a great example would be in Oracle, there's 3 different ways that you can put journal entries in, and none of them were great for us. They all had positives, but some of our entries might be 10,000 lines long, and I know that's not uncommon for a lot of organizations, and a certain level of complexity. And so basically, because the partner was so easy to work with, just in terms of, okay, hey, I want to spitball this with you. What if we did this, this, and this? And, either he knew it or he would say, let me double check on something. And so we actually came up with what I call a custom solution, but also out of the box, because we don't want to go, veer too far. And one of our things is we didn't want to do too much out of, that wasn't out of the box. We wanted to be easily upgradable, things like that. So we were able to, again, on journal entries is a great example, come up with a really great solution that enabled us to do what we did and use the existing functionality. And that's not something we would have been able to come up with without somebody who really understood accounting. So I think that was kind of my key takeaway.
So I think that's a really lovely way of well, first of all, describing that individual, but our job as a partner is to be able to talk your language, to be able to talk the business, do the translation to the technology. Like you say, you didn't have time to become technologists, and that's not your day job,
No.
right? Your day job is finance, so we need to talk finance to you, and coming in with that understanding of what you were doing and what you needed to do enables us to do that. But then very easily, as you said, when you go through the walkthrough and an assumption or the standard process isn't quite right for you, to be able to say, hey, that's not going to work because of journal entries, not a technology bit, like that screen doesn't work for us or that timing doesn't work for us. But from a finance perspective, we've got this mass uploads that we need to do. And so we need to have and that, I hate the term out of the box because it's such a configurable system, but we're able to use that configuration with a scenario that worked for you. And so that's great, like you say, a great example of how, we made assumptions, built something, did a walkthrough, and you said, actually, because of this reason, we need to do that slightly differently. And again, I say to people, if the thing that you want slightly different is because of the business that you do, then that's fine, right? Then, that's important. You've got your system, it's throwing out all of these journals, you need to capture them quickly. That's great. It's when you say, well, actually, I'm going to pay someone differently, or I'm going to do this, or, I know it's easy to do this, but we like to do things differently around here for the sake of it. That's no good. But it's when it's your business and your business model, then that's the right thing to do. So we've touched it on a couple of times, but you said you're a small team, you built the excitement, everyone was involved in it. But how did you deal with business as usual? You had 7 months of working flat out to get a new system in with a date that couldn't move. So how did you manage business as usual, month ends, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, a lot of hard work. But a couple, I think extreme organization is what I would highly recommend. And just to give you a few examples, I mean, first of all, we internally had a strong project lead. And we also had strong subject matter experts. So like my AR person, very strong, my AP person, and we made, attendance at these mandatory, obviously. And then, we have Obviously deadlines like everybody does in their job. So we had to keep those, but we tried to be as flexible as we could with other like special projects. In our company, we have things called quarterly rocks. We put those all on hold. Those all went away. This was the project. So basically we had our day job, and then maybe things that weren't as important took a little bit of a backslide so we could focus on the Oracle implementation. And then again, the big thing was structure. We had a very detailed project plan. We had very detailed meetings, a structure to the meetings. And like just even an example with like training, some of the meetings that I would have, and I may be skipping ahead a little bit, so sorry about that, but I would actually get my team online and say, okay, because we all sometimes will multitask, or an email or a chat pops up and I'm going to go take care of that. And I basically said to everybody at the beginning, listen, we all have to know this. We have to know this. We can't be stumbling. So do me a favor, mute everything else. If you need to take a call, daycare call, whatever your situation, just holler out in the meeting. Like, we will stop, we will wait, but we need to go ahead and we all need to be engaged for these, X amount of training sessions. And then at the end, we all need to kind of say, yes, we get it, we don't get it, we need to talk about it more. We'll have follow-up sessions. And that really, really helped, I think, having a very organized approach to the meetings, a very organized approach to the training, very strong project leaders, obviously a very strong, Inoapps partner that kept us, on track with all that as well.
So I think the thing I'd add to that was you also had that senior level engagement. So from the top down, it was, we're going to do this. There was that level of excitement. Often there's a balance to be met, especially in a very big organization. How do you backfill the business as usual? You didn't go down that road. You were all multitasking, but actually you weren't multitasking at one time. It was, we're doing both jobs, but we will stop one job to do the other job. It was, when we're on the Oracle project, we're all on the Oracle project. When it's month end, we're all on month end. And that discipline, and it was discipline, made it happen. And I know that meant lots of extra hours for you all, but there was the prize at the end that you were going to have a system that was going to support what you needed to do.
Just to interject there, absolutely. And I think that was key. I mean, the system we were on was so clunky and just so difficult. An example was you could only run a GL for 2 years and then they would just disappear and you'd have to piece them together. Little stuff like that, if you would go through an audit. So the excitement of just getting on a real system. And then honestly, I tried to be very motivating and keep the team. We worked a lot through the Christmas holiday, right? Obviously coming up. Our Inoapps partner actually was, we had like a patch that Oracle threw out in the middle of all of it, which was, not something any of us had planned for. So, we shifted our schedules. Our Inoapps partner shifted his schedule to make sure that, we got everything we needed to get done. And even our CFO, which I thought was really nice, because we were chatting at a one-on-one and she got the team on a call too and was just like expressing appreciation, because sometimes just the, hey, we appreciate what you're doing goes a long way. So it really just got us through to the end.
So for the audience, if you haven't done an Oracle implementation yet, the promise of innovation, the promise of continuous innovation is great during the sales process. But what that means is you get an update to your software every 3 months. And the dates that comes is non-negotiable. Well, you choose it up front, but once you've chosen which month of the quarter you're going to have it, it arrives. And it arrives at a certain time and there is no changing. And that includes when you're going live the following week. So you get it in test the first Friday of a period, and then it comes into live on the third Friday. And if your go live happens to be a week after that, it still arrives, which was the scenario that happened. And I know that it also changed something that you were using. So there was not just we have to stop for this day while that's happening and then test it, but actually we have to make a quick change. And that and it was right in the middle of the holidays. And I know that our team and your team all just, you know, pulled up your sleeves just a little bit more. I didn't think there was any more arm to pull those sleeves up,
Yeah.
but they did, because everybody wanted to go live on the 1st of January. And it happened, didn't it?
Yes, it did. We had the call, the go no go. Oh gosh, if I'm remembering, I feel like it was like the 28th or 29th. Basically all the subject matter experts, Inoapps, our lead, our project manager lead, and our IT team. And there was nothing. We had made it through every hurdle, so there was nothing that we could not, so the decision was go, which everyone was really happy about.
Well, I know that I was really happy because, my job title says customer success, so I want it to be successful. But, and I know in finance, go live means different things to different people. So, it's not, oh, we can log into it. There are, when do we make our first payment? When do we do our first journal entry, etc. But what was it like for you in finance? What was those first few weeks like?
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, really, really positive. This is not my first rodeo with an implementation. I've been in finance or accounting for 35 years, so it's probably my fourth. And I mean, to say we had no showstoppers is incredible, and we didn't. Now, did we have a few little bumps? Absolutely. I think we had a few issues with like a customer feed, and again, that was more on our IT side, that we had a little blip. But you know, we we ran checks the first week. We, paid our bills. We applied cash. We did everything we needed to do when we needed to do it. I remember in my prior life there was an implementation, and I don't remember. It's been a hot minute, but they weren't able to bill for 2 months. Like, it was crazy stuff like that. Not able to reconcile WIP for months, and we didn't have any of that. We, again, a few little blips, but nothing crazy. I think there was, like, if I'm recalling, one of the bank files kept bombing out, and we just had to get on the phone with the bank. And then, that's kind of your first 3 weeks. Well, now in the week 4, we're gearing up for the GL side of it to come in, right? Because AR and EP go right away. The GL side, the approach I took is we had a refresher. So I kind of talked a little bit earlier about, basically the GL training side. We had a little refresher, right? I don't know about the rest of the folks on the call, but it's hard to remember something a month later when you have seen it, 1, 2, 3 times and you haven't used it actively. So we had a little refresher and geared up for our first close. And we're on a pretty tight close schedule. We have to give you example, we have at least 100 journal entries. We have a lot of moving pieces, and we typically close in 5 days. This was a year-end close. We closed in 7 for round 1, and there's always more than one round at year-end. But yeah, we basically was 2 extra days, and I would say typically there would be one extra day because it's year-end. So really just one extra day, and that was people like, okay, I need to reject an entry or I need to load it, and just not being like, they knew how to do all the basics, but oh, this little nuance, I need to, go ask somebody. And we did also videos on everything. So maybe they had to go watch the video again. I should have mentioned that all of our trainings were video recorded in-house. So, and also with Inoapps too. So if I ever had to go back and look at something, I would just go to the video, and they were all nicely labeled so I could, go look. But again, I can't say enough about it. And again, having been through this, this is like I want to say like my 5th one. I had a much bigger role in this one than in my past lives. But again, we paid our bills, we applied our cash, we closed in 7 days. So
I think that it's really easy to train for the happy path. So when
yeah,
things go right, it's always those little anomalies that that you perhaps you see once every 6 months or something, and they're bound to come that first time. And then you say, oh, how do I deal with this? How do I? So it's good that you're still in that learning mode. But yeah, and now you've had, what are we now? We're now in November, so you've had 10 month ends now.
Yes, we've closed 10 times. And then we're also live on Canada. We went live 10/1. So that was, and we also went live. I haven't been involved in the EPM side, the planning side, but they're live as well. But my phase 2, which was to bring on our foreign entity with FX and the whole thing, that just went live, and happy to say we closed that in 4 days.
Wow. So, that's the next point that I was going to make. We have, I said at the beginning that Evolve was about that fast time to value. What do you need in phase 1? But that commitment to carry on. So you've mentioned that there was EPM, and that's around your budgeting, but also around reporting out to your branches. So that's very powerful. That's giving information to some people who didn't have it on tap before. It had to be pushed out to them. So there's a big value there. And then, as you say, you've brought on your Canadian entity with all, not as
And we
complicated.
followed we followed the exact same process because it went so well. We did have a different assigned partner, but again, very strong on the accounting side. This person especially had some FX background that was super helpful. I mean, we had, this is our first forte, and I was I'll be honest, a little stale on my FX. I was trying to remember back from 10 years ago when I dealt with it more. So it was nice to have somebody to kind of talk through and say, okay, how is this going to work again? And okay, I'm going to reval this way. And, anyway, we got it all working. Everything went really, really well. And again, we just closed and I led that. And I mean, the thing I was probably most nervous about is this reval and translation and all the rules and everything, but all the math worked and we're great. So it's just a smaller business unit, but it is, more complex than just the US. So it was nice to have success round 2.
Yeah, so you use the term partner there, whereas what we're actually talking about is the Inoapps person that worked with you.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
so in the first phase, we had a really strong finance from the bottom up. Who worked with you on the chart of accounts and all the way through to that go live, and then we brought in one with more foreign exchange
Well,
experience.
yeah, and I should also mention a different business model, right? So I would keep saying Canada. Sorry, I've been saying that for months. Um, Canada, yeah, they're more of a service side and not like service of fixing things, service more technology software, and they do things differently up there. So there was just it was nice that the chart and all that was built out, but there was a lot of other business needs that needed to be addressed that were in addition to the US side.
And it's lovely that now you've got all of that on, which is going to make, consolidation easier. Well, you won't have to consolidate, it's all there together, which is something that you've had to do all the time previously. You've not had that luxury before of having it all in the same.
Yeah, no, we were doing manual journal entries and yeah, everything is on and, back to audit, which is, kind of I don't know, the be all and end all of what you do all year because everything gets audited. It's all on one system. So we brought on our year to date balances and we will be good for this year. So, or January, February for our 2024, all on one system. Very
Brilliant, because
exciting.
it just seems like yesterday to me that we went live, together on the 1st of January, and now we're coming up to another 1st of January, and you've got, a whole year of the main data, and now you've brought Canada in as well. So, like you say, it should be a much more straightforward audit when you get next year.
Yeah, it absolutely will. And then, I mean, just from an Oracle functionality, just the ability to, what I'm loving is the Excel exporting, which I know has really nothing to do with this, but in terms of Inoapps, but the Oracle, I mean, just some of the functionality we've gained is great, which is just going to give us so many efficiencies with the audit. So a little
Brilliant.
plug there for Oracle. I've worked on SAP, I've worked on JDE, I've worked on a number of higher tier systems, and this one is definitely up there.
Well, that's really nice to hear because, that when you were making that evaluation, those were the things that we promised, that the Oracle Inoapps promised, and it's delivered. And I'm very pleased to hear that. I've said my job title is customer success, and there is nothing better than talking to a customer who's got that success, that has what they wanted. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Janie, do
Absolutely.
we have any questions?
We have a couple of questions. One for Inoapps. How easy is it to add on additional phases to the implementation? Thought you needed to make all the decisions up front.
So it's important that you design your solution with the end in mind. So, when you're design, in this case, you want a chart of accounts that's going to cater for multiple legal entities, but you don't need all of the detail for them on day one. So to say, oh, we'll put Canada in later, that's fine. The system will cope with that. It's important to understand not necessarily the final position, because your organization will grow as well, but understand the flexibility that it can give you, and not discount things that you might do in the future. But it is very normal for an organization to do things in phases. A large multinational organization may well go country by country, or it may go globally, depending on how intertwined those processes are, and might just do finance first and then supply chain later. So it takes a bit of thought, but it's something that we do all of the time. So phasing is it's part of the architect's job to determine the best way to deliver it.
Thanks, Deborah. And a question for Lisa. The project seemed to go very well, but is there anything you would have done differently, or any tips that you would give people and your key takeaways?
Let me think. Honestly, I wish we had more time. From our organizational perspective, I think a little bit, but not really. To be honest with you, I mean, you can't avoid bumps. There's going to be bumps in any kind of implementation of anything. I mean, even like we went on a new credit card system. There's bumps, but there just wasn't anything that was a deal breaker. I mean, maybe the patch, maybe hindsight's 2020, and if we had looked ahead better, maybe we would have picked a better date for when we wanted Oracle to release our patch. That is probably something to take into account when you go with Oracle, and don't do that super close to when you think you're going to go live.
Yeah, I think the patch thing was the right timing for when you are live, because
Yes.
you want it out of the way before year end. Oracle are a bit more flexible now. You can change between your implementation and your go live, but it was pretty rigid. I would say on the timing, when we looked at the timescale that you had, and we were asked honestly, can we do this? The answer was, we can do it. Can you do it? And it was, for us, it was that belief in the organization and support right from the very top. right from the very top of your organization, it was, we can do this. We don't underestimate how much work it is. It is going to be evil, but we can do this, and we need to do this. Help us achieve that. And that made us much more confident that you could do it, because it's easy for the C-level to sign it off and walk away and have nothing to do with it. But that wasn't the case in your organization. And, you know, it's a whole other presentation, but these projects stand and fail on change management. And change management needs that support from the top, and it needs a really strong project lead. And you had both of those with skills in spades. So we knew it could be done. So is that it, Janie?
Thank you. Yes, that's all our questions.
Well, I just want to thank Lisa. Thank you so much, Lisa. This has been really interesting to hear your story, and you're still smiling. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah,
So
absolutely happy to share, the experience, and, if for others that are gonna head down this road, hopefully they gain something insightful.
brilliant. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for listening.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
and everybody will be sent a copy of the recording 24 hours after the event. But if you have any questions, please email info@inoapps.com and we can answer them offline.